We continue with our coverage of this breaking news story at this hour. Acting Judge Patrick Maqubela's wife, Thandi Maqubela, has just been sentenced to 15 years in prison for his murder in the Western Cape High Court. Our reporter Annika Larson outside that court right now following the sentencing. And Annika, what a lot Judge John Murphy had to weigh up in coming to this decision.
That's right, Joe, and I think speaking to family members outside, especially the stepchildren of Thandi Maqubela, they said that this is what they were expecting. They were hoping for a life sentence, but Judge John Murphy did give the prescribed minimum sentence of 15 years for murder. He was not convinced that there was a conspiracy to murder. The state did not produce enough evidence to show that there was premeditated murder, and therefore a life term or 25 years was not appropriate. He also took into account that she has been behind bars for 16 months. She is 16 years old, and she does need time to rehabilitate, to find some sort of remorse and to re-enter society as a rehabilitated person. But very interestingly, I thought, was the reasons, perhaps the mitigating factors that he certainly took into account. He took into account, and he mentioned it several times, Joe, that this was a woman whose social standing was very important to her, that she was a successful businessman, but she was a woman who for several years had been deeply humiliated by her husband, that the acting judge had had a string of affairs that he was not ashamed about in any way, that he had been taking Viagra, that she had been following him and his girlfriends, that she had finally cracked when he'd asked for a divorce on the night before the murder. And like the parole officer said, like the social worker said, she was almost like a bottle of Coca-Cola or fizzy drink that had been shaken and just snapped. And so this deep anger, this resentment towards her husband, the humiliation, the shaming had certainly played some role in her behavior.
It's such a woman of contradictions, because on the one hand we know that the judge was slightly sympathetic to her actions because of the factors you've just mentioned. On the other hand, 9 months after the actual murder, we see her making an attempt to commit fraud, to commit forgery involving his will. Still that element of deceit present in Thandi Maqubela's behavior.
You know, Joe, that really sums it up, because throughout this trial there have been this web of deceit, this web of lies that started right from the very start, from when, even before the body of acting Judge Patrick Maqubela was found. You know, it's been said that Thandi Maqubela showed an excessive lack of empathy by accelerating decomposition, by turning up the heating and putting the acting judge, her husband, in 2 sets of clothing, so that by the time the body was found, a cause of death would not be able to be conclusively decided. His body was fairly decomposed by the time that he was found, and this made it, the judge said, incredibly difficult and traumatic for family members. Thandi Maqubela was making phone calls from his phone to his friends, such as Jeff Khadebe, saying, you know, I've done terrible wrong to my wife, etc., etc. So this web of deceit went from the beginning, from before her arrest, right till the very end of her trial. And I think it was said in summary of evidence that she had lied between 30 and 40 times to the court, from her collapsing, from her feigning mental illness. She was taken for a mental assessment and found to be very capable of understanding the proceedings of her trial, forging the will, fraudulently trying to finagle the life insurance. So all this led, he said, to a sense of self-aggrandizement, a personality disorder, some element of psychotic behavior that ultimately led to her committing murder.
We are running out of time, Annika, but you brought us to a very important point about whether the possibility of appeal exists in this case.
Well, there are two elements which stand out for me and make me think that it may well be possible, but for her possible financial woes. And that is, she has had several lawyers, she's been unable to pay them, she's had legal aid issues. This has been a long and drawn out trial, but her co-accused was not found guilty. So the conspiracy element was thrown out the window, and then we've seen that in the sentencing now. The second question is that the cause of death was inconclusive. It may have been suffocation due to a piece of gland wrap, but there is no actual cause of death that the pathologist could testify in court that actually caused his death conclusively. Plus, on top of that, the police said from the very beginning he may have actually died of a heart attack. So she is able to apply for leave to appeal and explore those issues. And I think that the mitigating factors of her being a humiliated, shamed woman that was driven to such intense anger may well play a part in applying for leave to appeal.
Annika Larson, thanks so much for putting us in the picture from the steps of the Western Cape High Court.